I'm originally from Phoenix, Arizona, and when I was about, I don't know, about 17, I saw a documentary on PBS. It was called The History of Rock and Roll, and it featured a lot of wonderful artists that I'd never heard of before. But one of the episodes really intrigued me. It was called Plugging In, and it was about the village scene in New York City in the early 60s, and then it went all the way to the scene in San Francisco in the Monterey Pop Festival with Jimi Hendrix and Janis Joplin and all those people. And so the village scene really intrigued me, and I really got into Bob Dylan's music and Phil Ochs' music. And that kind of got me started. And from there, I picked up a book here and there and read about that early scene, and I read about all these great folk singers, and I heard about all these jug bands, and then I got into the Newport Folk Festival and started looking up the different records about all these amazing musicians that it was sort of ironic in a way, because I was reading about musicians who had gotten into these other musicians who were from these faraway places. So I was in Arizona reading about these musicians that were from faraway places too, and it really intrigued me. And so from there I started just picking up songs here and there and picking up records and trying to learn everything I could about different types of folk music. And by the time I got through college, I had spent some time doing slam poetry, and so in that I got into like the beat poets, and I got into bebop jazz, and then I got into jug band music really heavy. And from there I then started getting into the 20s and 30s material, and it was around then that I graduated from college, and I got invited to an event called the Black Banjo Gathering, which happened in Boone, North Carolina, which was talking about the African and black roots of the banjo. And I was always unique in the way that I wasn't ever truly a straight blues fan, but I was always a fan of people like Leadbelly and Henry Thomas and Papa Charlie Jackson and all these guys that were kind of on the fringes of blues scholarship, or they were all sort of like, they called them pre-blues songsters. And so that really intrigued me. And as I went to this event on the banjo, I started learning about black string bands and sort of that idea. So I met up with a couple of folks out there, and we started a group called the Carolina Chocolate Drops. And so the other two members, they were featuring just straight ahead North Carolina string band music. And for me, on my end, I brought in all these different ideas of folk music, country blues, jug band, early jazz, and fife and drum music, and all these other elements, and I mixed it in with the string band music. And so that's always where my interest is lied, I guess, in the whole scheme of everything. And then from there, I've just expanded on the things that I was already interested in, as I've been able to make a profession out of it, which is which is something I never thought I'd do.
Times ain't now nothing like they used to be. Old times ain't now nothing like they used to be. Well, tell the truth, oh, take it from me. I done seen better days, but I ain't putting up with these. I done seen better days, I ain't putting up with these. I'd have a much better time if you girls weren't so hard to please. 'Cause I was born in the country, thinks I'm easy to rule. 'Cause I was born in the country, she thinks I'm easy to rule. Wanna hitch me to a wagon, she wanna drive me like a mule. Though I bought the groceries and I paid the rent. Though I bought all the groceries and I paid the rent. Try to make me wash her clothes, but I've got good common sense. Says if you don't want me, why don't you tell me so? Said if you don't want me, why don't you tell me so? 'Cause it ain't like a man ain't got nowhere to go. Says you want me to love you and you treat me mean. How do you want me to love you if you keep on treating me mean? You're my daily thought and my nightly dream. Been giving you sugar for sugar, let you get salt for salt. Been giving you sugar for sugar, let you get salt for salt. Then if you can't get along with me, then it's your own fault. Sometimes I think you're too sweet to die. Sometimes I think you're too sweet to die. And other times I think you ought to be buried alive.
Something that drew me into music originally was the unique sound of different voices. So I was really into that. And so it was literature and voices. Those are the two things that really drew me into music. And so I always have had a love of different voices. And so I've trained myself to be a vocal contortionist. So it's like when I would sing a song, I would really try to imitate the sounds of the different people that I was covering. You know, like I would do, you know, for example, I'd be like, go away from my window, leave at your own chosen speed. Or you'd have like a if you hear me howling, calling on my darling, ooh, ooh, ooh. You know, I just got into doing all these different impressions of people. Oh, you can say, you can take it, you can break it, you can hang it on the wall. Swallow and I catch it will fall. You can take it, you can break it on the wall. Swallow and I catch it will fall, my jelly. Tomorrow, sweet mama, don't you let it fall. You know, so I got into just doing that with every type of music. And, you know, at that time, I didn't realize that was wrong, you know, because you know, at first I didn't ever try to do music for a living, and I happened to stumble across a situation that led me to be able to do it as a profession. So I've been very fortunate in that way. But I spent a lot of years, I'd go to the coffee shops and I'd just do a whole set of Cat Stevens, or I'd do a whole set of like Leonard Cohen, and out in Phoenix, nobody knew who any of these people were, so it would just be like, you know, I did it just for kicks for myself. And, you know, as I've gone along, it's been fun to be able to travel along. And, you know, like I had one situation I had a couple years ago. I was on a bill with Eric Anderson, and the host of this show, he knew I did my Eric Anderson impersonation. And it's like, I'm standing right next to Eric Anderson, he has such an intense face. So he was like, slapped me on the back and was like, hey, Don, what? Do your Eric Anderson impersonation. I'm like, oh man, in front of Eric Anderson? He's like, God, just go ahead and try it, you know. And I was like, take me to the night I'm tipping, topsy-turvy, turning upside down. You know, and I did that, and I've had about 3 or 4 different situations where I ran into the people I was doing impressions of. And that's just something I've always liked to do. And then also, kind of in a material standpoint, you know, it's so rare that people get to hear those voices live because I don't try to sound like exactly like the records, because it's like a daguerreotype painting. It's not really the true representation of what's going into that horn. So I try to think in my own mind, okay, well, it sounds like that on that little recording. How would it have sounded in person? And so I take some liberties to try to figure out what would sound like a living, breathing person singing like that. Just like the Rabbit Brown's the same way. He just has that that sort of voice. And, I can't help but want to try to mimic that idea.
If I lose, let me lose. Mama don't mind, Mama don't mind. If I lose, let me lose. Mama don't mind, Mama don't mind. I got on my walking shoes. I'm gonna walk away my blues. If I lose, let me lose. Mama don't mind, Mama don't mind. You can tell when your man is going to leave, going to leave. You can tell when your man is going to leave, going to leave. He stays out every night. I'm back home and wants to fight. If I lose, let me lose. Mama don't mind.